A train excursion to Copper Canyon is a journey you'll always remember.
If you like trains, you're going to love this trip. If you like Mexico, you're going to love this trip.
This is a unique journey, the Copper Canyon. You have to see it. It's another world.
Train is still the only way to go across the Sierra.
When the persons come here, they say, "Oh!"
Take a trip with us today as we visit a beautiful remote part of Old Mexico, the Copper Canyon. All aboard as Reader's Digest presents America's Scenic Rail Journeys. The Copper Canyon trip is a unique journey into one of North America's most fascinating and least known wilderness areas. It begins in the colorful Mexican border town of Nogales. We have chosen the Sierra Madre Express for our trip to Mexico. This comfortable, modern train operates with the permission of the Mexican federal government, and its spacious cars are pulled by locomotives manned with crews from the Mexican National Railroad. As it travels through the night, the Sierra Madre Express parallels the Gulf of California, which in earlier days was called the Sea of Cortez. Our destination is the remote Barranca del Cobre, or Copper Canyon, deep in the heart of the Sierra Madre Occidental mountain range.
If you simply fly into Mexico in an airplane and get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to make a 6 o'clock train to go see the canyon, you're upset. You're not down to speed.
For Peter Robbins, who founded the Sierra Madre Express, this initial leg of the journey is an essential one.
On our particular trip, traveling 400 miles south takes 24 hours, and it gives everybody a chance to slow down, relax, and get ready to see Mexico.
The new morning offers us a potent mix of sights, smells, and sounds that quicken our appetites for adventure. Now we head northeast, into the western mountains that form the spine of the Continental Divide below the U.S.-Mexico border. From Sufragio Station, we climb steadily toward Copper Canyon. Copper Canyon is the collective name for the mile-deep chasms that are far deeper than America's Grand Canyon. The tunnel ahead, El Descanso, is the longest tunnel on our trip. It takes the train almost 2 minutes to escape its 6,000 feet of darkness. The rugged Sierra Madre mountains and rivers made building the railroad here a daunting engineering challenge.
Oh, there it is. You can see it.
The bridge over the Rio Chinipas, over 1,000 feet long, is the highest of the 37 bridges the train must negotiate. And 355 feet down, the water looks very far away. Another bridge over the Chinipas River just ahead has some smoke curling up from it.
Another trestle like all this.
As we can see, a friendly welder is simply doing maintenance work on the bridge. Peter Robbins spent almost 10 years renovating and outfitting the Sierra Madre Express.
We had mortgaged everything we owned, the house and the car to get some money for the first trips. And as the years went by, we would add and build one car, and then it would be a 3-car train, and then it was a 4-car train. And so little by little, it's grown. It's a very special little train. It will never be a great big commercial operation, and I think that's kind of the joy in how Sierra Madre Express operates.
Perhaps the most popular car is the one-of-a-kind Divisadero car, with its combination of an open-air coach and an observation platform.
You can smell Mexico, you can hear Mexico, you're actually participating in the sights, sounds, and smells of Mexico.
You'll get all kinds of falcons and hawks. We saw earlier the osprey that were perched on the cactus. Up here, the most common one that we'll see is the turkey vulture, the black vulture, yeah. They circle around, yeah.
The cactus-studded slopes of the Sonoran Desert had given way to a very different landscape of Sinaloan thorn forest. This is mining country. In 1910, the state of Sonora exported ores worth 26 million pesos, and 60% of that was from copper. Some powerful Americans saw the benefits of building a rail line up into these treacherous canyons. Industrialist Albert K. Owen began this rail line in the late 1800s, but quickly gave up. Arthur E. Stillwell, an American railroad builder, took Owen's place. One of the contractors hired by Stillwell to build the line was the infamous revolutionary leader Pancho Villa. But during the Mexican Revolution, Villa probably blew up more sections of the railroad than he ever built. The Mexican government finally had to finish the project.
Another scenic view.
Another bridge coming up, which is the Santa Barbara Bridge, 714 feet.
This is Tunnel 50 we're going through. That's our last tunnel before we approach tomorrow.
The sheer rock faces of the mountains here made it difficult for the train to climb. Spiraling tunnels and loops allow the train to wind its way up the canyons. The railroad was dedicated here in 1961, almost 80 years after it was begun. The tunnel near Tamaulipas is over 3,000 feet long, and it negotiates a 180-degree turn within its span. "70 seconds after it enters the tunnel, our train comes out the other end, but headed in the opposite direction and still climbing. Passengers can look back down over the 3 different levels of track the train has just passed over. We're traveling from Tamaulipas to Bawichivo, which is our stopping point for a side trip to the small village of Cerocao. The Jesuit mission of San Francisco marks the center of the village. The mission was founded by Padre Juan Maria de Salvatierra, who was the first European to reach the bottom of Copper Canyon. The mission was begun in the late 17th century, and a village quickly grew up around it. Three centuries after it started, the mission here is still run by Jesuits, who also operate a boarding school for Tarahumara Indian children. A number of these children come from as far away as 150 miles to receive an education. They are practicing today for the upcoming Cinco de Mayo parade, Mexico's 4th of July. The Hotel Mission is owned by Roberto Balderrama. Senor Balderrama was instrumental early on in establishing interest in the Copper Canyon area. The tranquil pace of Cerro Cahui gives us a chance to wind down and adapt to the rhythms of Mexican life.
Cerro Cahui is a unique village, a real Mexican Tarahumara village. Dates back to 1690 as a mission of Jesuits to convert the Tarahumara Indians. So that little village stays for the centuries, the same way of living. So I decided to build a hotel there for adventurers, for tourists. They are looking for different places. The real old Mexico is in Cerro Cahui.
Renting some horses from a local rancher may be one of the best ways to relive the experience of bygone days.
Muy hombre.
Today's hike leads us to an area accessible only on foot or on horseback and ends at the refreshingly clear waters of Huicochic Falls.
We don't have beaches, we don't have tennis or golf. This is a different kind of vacation. As an adventure, I would say that you have the beauty, the romance, and the adventure for a place, and it's part of the trip to Copper Canyon.
Back on the train, we head over a 695-foot-long bridge. Beyond it, the rail builders had to blast a series of tunnels through these sheer rock walls. There was no way to go around here. The builders simply had to dynamite their way through.
It was extremely dangerous work because in the early days when this was built, a lot of the safety requirements that are now taken as commonplace weren't in place. So a lot of people were killed building the tunnels. There would be unexpected landslides, cave-ins inside of the tunnels. The longest tunnel, El Descanso, is a mile long, and then there are a whole bunch of short tunnels, little short tunnels, and it was done by back-breaking hand work in the early days.
It's easy to forget those struggles now, as the train glides smoothly from one tunnel to another. As our train emerges from the dank tunnel, the canyon air feels clear and fresh. We pass World War II troop cars that not only serve as storage containers, but also house rail workers. The end of the line for our first day is El Divisadero, which means the view, and that name is well deserved.
Welcome to Copper Canyon.
Breathtaking views of the Copper, Tariqua, and Orique canyons await us wherever we look. For many centuries, the Tarahumara have believed that this endlessly dramatic landscape of mile-deep chasms, towering waterfalls, and sun-shot clouds is ruled by the natural forces of good and evil. Most of the Tarahumara vendors here have hiked many miles from where they live in the barrancas to sell their handmade jewelry and baskets. Visitors to this outdoor market can find crafts that are truly one of a kind, made by the vendors and their families. There's nothing mass-produced here. These basket makers use the same native grasses that their distant ancestors used, and even construct unique baskets made from pine needles. Near the station is another comfortable hotel in Copper Canyon country, the Posada Barrancas El Mirador.
Welcome to the hotel.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Hi. When the persons come here, they say, "Oh," because we are right on the rim of the canyon, and you can see the canyon everywhere you just stay in the hotel, from the rooms, from the living, from the dining room. Every room has a balcony to the canyon.
You see the birds in the trees, the little finches? That's fabulous.
This hotel was built with mostly Tarahumara Indians who lives around the canyon, up those mountains. We didn't use any machines. Everything was handmade. And if you see all the ornaments and the tile, the walls is adobe, everything is natural. We use everything from Mexico, from the area.
In the morning, we wake up to glorious sunshine and the roomy dining room of El Mirador. There is time for breakfast. And for the views we might have missed the evening before, we can peer carefully down into the canyon from the rim.
Everybody ready? Welcome to the canyon.
Or fly right down into it. A morning helicopter flight takes off from the hillside adjacent to El Mirador. As our helicopter sweeps down into the barrancas, the magnificent splendor of this landscape is revealed to us.
As we pass through the pillars, because it's windy today, the helicopter may move a little bit, so nothing to be concerned. It's just a little air.
These barrancas, or canyons that comprise the Copper Canyon region, are 4 times greater in area and several hundred feet deeper than the Colorado River's Grand Canyon. But if we want to get an even closer look at Tarahumara life in this area, we have to get back on the train and go north to the logging town of Creel. On the way, we cross the Continental Divide. At 8,071 feet, it's the highest point on our rail journey.
That's where they come here to the canyons to relax and take it easy and enjoy the time. That's part of the beautiful thing of this trip. You are not rushing, you are resting, you are reading, you are talking, you are making good conversation, enjoying life.
We have a mix of several cultures in Creel. We have, of course, the Mexican culture in Creel. We have the Tarahumaras who live on the outskirts of Creel. For instance, these little fields are all Tarahumara right out here. Then we have a small Anglo community, and then we have some of the Mennonite influence, because down the rails towards Chihuahua is a Mennonite community. So occasionally in Creel you'll hear German spoken, which is kind of unique.
Creel is in the heart of Tarahumara country, and the perfect destination for travelers who want to explore the culture of the Copper Canyon region. Pedro Palma, a local guide, was raised with Tarahumara Indians.
Creel is a fairly new town that started from the arrival of the railroad. At the beginning, it was really just in a small mestizo settlement. When I say mestizo, I say mixed blood. There's Indian and Spanish blood in this culture. Train is still the only way to go across the Sierra, and it's still the best way to see the Copper Canyon or the Barrancas del Cobre.
What country are you?
Creel's permanent residents are predominantly mestizo, but the Tarahumara come into town to sell what they've made and to buy supplies. The oldest retail establishment in town is the Mission Artisan Store, which sells Tarahumara baskets, pottery, woven goods, jewelry, and carvings. Alejandrina Lopez operates the Mission Artisan Store.
Well, I came first as a tourist about 20-something years ago. At that time, I decided I may come and help, you know. I didn't know how, but then I said, I am an accountant from Mexico City, but then I said, someday I will go and help for 1 year. And I came in '81 and not only stay 1 year, stay 15 years now.
Alejandrina's store offers the Tarahumara an important outlet for marketing their crafts. Proceeds help to defray the operating expenses of this hospital. This hospital, which provides free care for the Tarahumara and for anyone else who needs its services, was the vision and achievement of Jesuit missionary Father Luis Verplanken. The Jesuits have been at work here for hundreds of years. Hidden deep in a remote section of the Barranca del Cobre is this magnificent 17th century Spanish cathedral, usually referred to as the Lost Mission of Sateva. Its design and purpose link us to similar missions that were built by Franciscan missionaries all along the coast of California about 100 years ago. Protected by their historically isolated homeland, the Tarahumara have become one of the most populous native peoples in North America. Currently, they number almost 50,000. In the 16th century, the Tarahumara Indians settled in the Copper Canyon area to avoid being enslaved by the conquistadores. Later, many of them also strongly resisted conversion by the Jesuits. There are several day trips from our Sierra Madre Express that afford opportunities to see Tarahumara settlements close to the town. Some still live traditionally in cave homes and supplement their incomes by allowing tourists to visit these unique houses. Pedro Palma has arranged a visit for us.
We are in the nearest inhabited cave home near Creel, and this is a very traditional cave. It's about third generation already living here. It's a great story of the man who used to live here and passed away last December. Sebastian is how we refer to this cave as well, Sebastian's cave. He used to be the mailman between here and Huachoche, which is 150 kilometers from here, and there wasn't a road then. It used to take him about 10 days to get there. Also to the bottom of the canyon, which is Bato Pilas, 140 kilometers from here. So you're welcome to visit Sebastian's cave.
Sebastian's daughter, Maria, lives with her family in traditional Tarahumara fashion, raising animals and weaving belts on Inca looms. Religion is a powerful force here. The Tarahumara religion, a hybrid of Christian teachings mixed with their own native beliefs, echoes the battle between God and Satan. Many Tarahumara live in the higher, cooler rock caves during the summer, and then move down to the subtropical climate of the canyon floors during the winter months. Here, as everywhere, symbols of modern life appear, but get combined with the elements of traditional native attire, as we see in this basketball game. No matter how they live, though, all Tarahumara know themselves as raramuri, or foot runners, long before horses were brought into the Sierra Madre Occidental, or the train for that matter. The native nomads here traveled through the vast canyons in the easiest and most efficient way. They ran. Before this century, the raramuri were even reported to hunt deer by running them down, running until the deer simply dropped. Repeatedly, the Tarahumara have earned themselves the reputation of being among the greatest long-distance runners in the world.
Running is not only a sport, it also means practicing the social life among the community, because they live scattered all over in the high sierras and deep in the canyons. And by practicing the race of the kicking the wooden ball, that brings the community together and gives them the opportunity to practice, as I say, the social life.
Our train adventure nears its end. The final stop on this trip awaits us just beyond the bridge over the Rio Fuerte. We arrive at the small colonial town. El Fuerte was named for the 18th century fort that was built to protect the Spanish colonists. Cinco de Mayo, the 5th of May independence celebration, has started in El Fuerte. This town was the central trading destination for gold and silver miners. Missionaries and soldiers also outfitted their explorations to northwest Mexico and California from right here. Today, however, this bustling tourist town is a perfect spot to experience Mexico's traditional folk arts, to sample the native foods, and to enjoy the dancing and other cultural attractions of old Mexico. Now comes our chance to sit back and reflect on all we have seen during our remarkable time in the Copper Canyon. The sun slides toward the Pacific, and the Sierra Madre Express heads back north, up through Sonora toward California, which Teddy Roosevelt called West of the West, and toward our next exciting rail journey on the Coast Starlight. A ride on the luxurious Coast Starlight takes us through some of America's most unusual scenery. It's a glorious 2-day ride from the mission-studded coast above Los Angeles, through the Napa wine country, up past Oregon's snow-covered mountain forests, all the way to the romantic port city of Seattle. On the Coast Starlight. In the hours before dawn, the train prep and commissary crews in Los Angeles worked to outfit Amtrak West's most luxurious passenger train for its 2-day journey north to Seattle. Everything we might need on our journey north is prepared and loaded before we board the train. This new rail adventure on the Coast Starlight will follow much the same path that the early Franciscan missionaries traveled. Our journey on the Coast Starlight will take us 1,300 miles, from Los Angeles to Seattle, and it will pass through several of America's premier cities along the way. As we emerge from a tunnel in the Santa Susana Pass, we leave the 455 square mile sprawl of metropolitan Los Angeles behind us. We roll through the Simi Valley and head for the coastal town of Ventura. From there, we'll hug the shoreline up to our first stop at San Luis Obispo. Although it's Christmas time, the fields here in Southern California have turned bright emerald. Southern California's fall spring has arrived. The rains of November have given way to December's perfect weather. As we enjoy lunch, we can watch the vast Pacific endlessly roll against the shore rocks and reflect the azure sky. We pass close to the dazzling beaches at Montecito and Summerland.
One of the things that surprised me was how close we came to the ocean.
The area around Los Angeles is a semi-desert region, and the sun shines constantly. Without the ocean breezes, the climate would be too arid. But the combination of ocean mist and filtered sunlight have made Southern California not only famous for its weather, but also a dream destination for many travelers. As our train heads north, the landscape beside the train changes as we move from the coast towards the fertile fields of California's Central Valleys. The first part of the trip brings us to the charming town of San Luis Obispo.
May I have your attention, please? Amtrak northbound train number 14, the Coast Starlight.
About halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco, it's a great place to begin exploring this region's quaint Central California towns.
And Santa Barbara. The Coast Starlight will be boarding shortly for Salinas, San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco.
The mission, San Luis Obispo de Tolosa, was the fifth mission established by Padre Junipero Serra. One of the main tourist attractions near San Luis Obispo is San Simeon. Begun in 1919 and finished almost 30 years later, William Randolph Hearst's famous estate once included 270,000 acres. Enchanted Hill, as it's called, was designed in the Mediterranean revival style.
Hearst Castle was really the last of the great estates that were constructed during a period in American history called the Gilded Age.
James Allen is the public affairs officer.
With its collections, its decorative and fine arts, its furnishings, paintings, still intact. Hearst Castle's heyday was the 1930s. There was enough of the castle had been constructed and was usable that people were coming here regularly for visits. He loved this area. In letters to his mother, describes what a summer is like here, what a month is like here, how he loved the fine old oaks and the hollows of the hills and the expansive view of the Pacific Ocean. And after his parents had passed away, as I say, he was an only child, so when he inherited the land, began in 1919 at the age of 56 to build, the way he described it to his architect, Julia Morgan, something a little more comfortable. Mr. Hearst loved Christmas. He would invite up all of his staff's children up to the house, and he had purchased gifts for all the children. There'd be under one tree at the far south end of the room would all be gifts for little girls, and then at the north end of the room another tree with gifts for little boys. Most people's homes today could fit into that one assembly room, and to see these towering Christmas trees draped with tinsel and lit candles and the sounds and aromas of Christmas that we all have warm recollections of. I'm sure it must have been just an astonishing experience, and I could just see him tearing open the gifts with great gusto.
Hearst's mansion, which he referred to as his ranch, has 130 rooms and still contains much of his extensive art collection. Neoclassical statuary mixes with Art Nouveau sculpture. Medieval and Renaissance paintings are displayed near Gothic furniture. Roman sculpture, 16th century tapestries, rare books, and countless other treasures were shipped to California from all over the world. Here in the refectory, a Flemish tapestry depicting the prophet Daniel watches over an exquisitely set table that boasts 18th century Mexican silver candlesticks. Mr. Hearst did, however, appreciate some of the more ordinary things in life as well. The table is furnished exactly the way it would have been when he was in residence. William Randolph Hearst died sometime before 10 a.m. on August 14th, 1951, at the age of 88. 1 year after he died, the hilltop of the estate, about 125 acres, was given to the state of California by the Hearst Corporation. On June 2nd, 1958, the Enchanted Hill was opened to the public. Back on the train, we begin to climb up the Cuesta Grade, the highest point the Coast Starlight traverses in the verdant Santa Lucia mountain range. The scenically beautiful Cuesta Grade was an engineering challenge for the railroad builders. The train climbs 1,340 feet through a series of loops that carry us to the top of the Cuesta Pass. The southbound Coast Starlight, train number 11, greets us as she rolls by. Across from us, we can see Highway 101, the major north-south road, the King's Highway, or Camino Real. The next tourist attraction we pass is the small town of San Miguel. The mission here was the 16th mission in what is referred to as Father Sarah's Rosary, with a chain of 21 missions that stretch from San Diego to Sonoma. What is most remarkable about this mission is that both the exterior and interior decorations of the church are in practically the same condition in which the Padres left them in the middle of the 19th century. Dan Krieger is a professor of history at California Polytechnic State University.
We're at Mission San Miguel Archangel. It was founded in 1797 by Father Fermin de Lathuain, the Father Presidente of the California Missions. Father Lathuain was very interested in developing a mission at the center of this, what would become the state of California. And this is it. It's one of the only nearly unrestored missions in California. Much of what you see here is original from the 18 teens and 1820s. It's a spectacular place.
And inside of this church in 1823, 1824, a Spanish artist who came here by way of Peru, Esteban Munras, painted the interior to look something like a Roman temple. The altar itself is the most spectacular of all of the altars in the California Mission Church, made all the more so by the three-dimensional seeing eye of God that's jutting out at you. God knows all, God sees all. It's a very effective teaching tool of the Native Americans here. This church was used from the time it was constructed, about 1820, until its abandonment during the 1850s. In the 1880s, as the railroad came through here, people began to undergo what we call mission mania.
The so-called mission style characterized furniture and furnishings, even early Hollywood movies after the turn of the century. After we leave San Miguel, we drop down out of the Santa Lucia Range into the lush Salinas Valley. This is the country made famous by John Steinbeck, the Nobel Prize-winning author of such books as East of Eden and Grapes of Wrath. Steinbeck calls this valley a long, narrow swale between two ranges of mountains, where the Salinas River winds and twists up the center until it falls at last into Monterey Bay. As night comes on, we enter Northern California and roll into the San Francisco Bay Area. San Francisco is like no place else in America. Famous for its Golden Gate Bridge and its Victorian row houses, the city by the bay is not to be missed. The dawn of a new day finds us taking a different and delightful side trip, a day-long excursion on the Napa Valley wine train. Since December of 1989, this train has been not only showing people the wine country between Napa City and St. Helena, but treating them royally along the way. Vincent D. Domenico, an entrepreneur who invented Rice-A-Roni, is the managing partner of the wine train.
I like good food and good wine. And the idea is you want to combine the two because they really fit together. And our winemaker dinners are a great way to learn about pairing wine and food.
Wine buyer for the Napa Valley wine train is Brent Trojan.
There's a wine with a price for everybody on board. We also have a responsibility to showcase Napa Valley wines in a unique way. For instance, our vintners' luncheons, where we have an opportunity to showcase a premium Napa Valley winery. And we get to taste through all their wines, and the chef creates a luncheon paired around that winery's wines.
What we're tasting now, we got into the Pinots.
The distinguished chef on this rolling feast for the palate is Patrick Finney.
We are capable of serving about 135 gourmet meals in about 35 minutes. While our menu is not as extensive as a freestanding restaurant, what we do very well, and everything is prepared a la minute.
With our appetites fully satisfied, we climb back on board the Coast Starlight for an evening of travel that takes us up through Sacramento. Here in 1863, the Central Pacific Railroad began its portion of the rail line that would link the American West with the East 6 years later. Our destination tonight relates to that history, the charming railroad town of Dunsmuir.
The town was set to the rhythm of the railroad. Everything functioned on a railroad time. Home celebrations. Christmas was celebrated when Daddy's run was in, when he would come in. Maybe it would be the 24th of December or maybe the 26th of December. Once in a while, it might even be on the 25th of December. But it all depended.
Riva Kuhn has lived here for more than 70 years.
I came to this lovely little town not knowing a thing about it way back in, well, some people would call it the Dark Ages because it was 1926. And I had an interview with a principal. When he offered me the position, I took it. And so I came to Dunsmuir.
Railroad towns were magnets for people earlier in the century. When the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific met at Promontory Point, Utah, they linked the nation and created scores of towns like Dunsmuir.
I was a child and I saw this cab-forward steam locomotive that's like the one behind me.
A lifelong fascination with trains brought inventor Bruce Petty to Dunsmuir.
Where my parents were, we stopped and the smoke and steam was swirling around the whole thing, and off it went. One of the motivations of coming was Dunsmuir was a railroad town, and I could look out my window and watch trains roll by. Seeing trains. I think that's important to me. I like to watch them roll by.
For the people of Dunsmuir, Christmas and railroads are forever linked.
Every year I'm involved in Candles in the Canyon by bringing in the Christmas tree. You generally try to get about a 50-foot Christmas tree off of Mount Shasta into town in front of the courthouse.
Wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
With the sounds of the season still ringing in our ears, we bid goodbye to California as our train continues on toward Oregon. We pass through Klamath Falls and begin our climb into the breathtaking Cascade Mountains.
Yesterday morning, palm trees and sunshine. This morning, snow, and it's just a beautiful trip.
The palm trees and sun-kissed beaches of Southern California suddenly seem very far away. Oregon has always lured travelers. In the 1840s, before railroads reached here, many set out from Independence, Missouri, where the Oregon Trail began. They struggled for 2,000 miles to reach this land of wild forests, rocky coasts, beautiful rivers, and fertile valleys. Viewed from the snug interior of the Coast Starlight, the snow-covered mountains and passes seem serene and enchanting now. As the train makes its way through the storm, we ride comfortably insulated from the weather, able to enjoy the beauty of the snow in a way earlier travelers could not have imagined. The train is the perfect place to relax, to read, and to reflect. The summits of the Cascades soar to over 9,000 feet. Unless you're an experienced mountain climber, though, this is easily the best way to see them. As we head down out of the mountains, the snow shifts over to the rain that here in the Pacific Northwest is a constant. Locals are only partly kidding when they say you can tell when it's summer in Oregon because the rain gets warm. To many pioneers heading west, the fertile soil and moderate climate of the Willamette River Valley made it an ideal place to settle. Our train, however, is moving on to Portland.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's wine tasting time again.
Charles Roebuck is the Coast Starlight's Chief of Onboard Services today.
Champagne with us in our Pacific Parlor car. We have champagne for you today, ladies and gentlemen, and we know you'll enjoy yourself and love the wine that we're sampling today in our Pacific Parlor car here on the Coast Starlight, train number 14. Always something different, always something exciting, always different people to meet.
You're going to have to cut her off early.
We want them to enjoy themselves and want them to make it a memorable occasion, like something like their anniversary or something like that, something they never forget, experience on the Coast Starlight. Okay. One up a tick. Thank you, Charles. All right, you're welcome.
Had a good trip.
Yes, sir. All right.
The swollen Willamette River is churning fiercely as we approach Portland. Just past the falls and the dam is the Oregon Trail Interpretive Center. Portland is the state's largest city, with half of Oregon's almost 3 million people living here. Portland was rapidly developed during the 1840s because of the Columbia River, which connects it directly to the Pacific Ocean. John Couch, a New England sea captain exploring for salmon fisheries, helped to transform this city into a major port. We leave our train to visit the city. Portland is a cosmopolitan place, set in a landscape of great beauty. The city's downtown is a mixture of commerce and nature. It has its share of modern buildings, but its parks and public squares remind residents of the city's close connection with the natural world surrounding it. Mount Hood, at over 11,000 feet, the state's highest point, towers above us as we continue on towards Washington State and our final destination, Seattle. The end of our journey on the Coast Starlight brings us to the Pacific Northwest's largest and busiest metropolitan center. Hilda and Barry Anderson are travel writers who live in Seattle and ride the Coast Starlight as often as they can.
Years ago, when I used to say that I came from Seattle, the reaction I would get was, "Oh, I hear it rains a lot there." And of course I would say, "Oh yes, it rains a lot there." Now when I say I come from Seattle, people say, "Oh, I hear that's a lovely place."
Been excellent. Pleasure. Thank you very much.
We'll see if we can ride again with you.
Well, okay, I'll look forward to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then, of course, at Christmas time, at this time of the year, the city just lights up. Everything is ablaze with lights.
Christmas time is the best time to visit Seattle, when it puts on a brilliant holiday display. The buildings, streets, and squares glow with thousands of lights. At the port, the city celebrates with bonfires. Even ships in the harbor are outlined in lights. These lightship displays have become a tradition for the families of Seattle. As our rail journeys come to an end, we look back happily on our adventures, their sights and sounds, from the awe-inspiring barrancas of the Copper Canyon to the villages of the Tarahumara Indians and the colonial towns of Old Mexico, from the wave-tossed California coastline to the mountain snows of Oregon, from the vineyards of the Napa wine country to the Christmas splendor of Seattle. These unforgettable scenic rail journeys will live on in our imaginations for many years to come. Thanks for riding with us.